Hey, I'm Holland with Memphis Public Library, and welcome back to Community Art Academy, partnered with the University of Memphis's Art Education Department. Today we're going to learn about weaving, and as we do so, we're going to read a book called Extra Yarn by Mac Barnett and illustrated by John Klassen. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town, where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. So she went home and she knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars too. But there was still extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed, and he said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was. And even after she'd made a sweater for Nate and his dog, and for herself and Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet," shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone. Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." But it turned out she could. And she did. Even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and Mr. Pendleton and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat, and even then, Annabelle still had extra yarn. She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats and for the other animals too. Soon people thought Annabelle will run out of yarn, but she didn't. And so Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. Things began to change in that little town. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from all around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, an archduke who was very fond of clothes sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. "Little girl," said the Archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I am willing to offer you $1 million. "No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The Archduke's mustache twitched. $2 million, he said. Annabelle shook her head. "No, thanks." $10 million, shouted the Archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. So that night, the Archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house, and they stole that box and took it to the Archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea. Back to his castle. The Archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. Then he took out the box, and he lifted its lid, and he looked inside. His mustache quivered. It shivered, it trembled. The Archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." But it turned out that she was. The end.
Hello, I'm Sherry Newberry. I'm an art teacher, and this is...
I'm Bridget O'Hara. I'm an art teacher at Douglas K-8, and we are graduate students at the University of Memphis.
So, thanks Holly for the book. We appreciate you reading that. We're talking about yarn today.
Yes. So we are going to show you today how to weave on a loom. As you can see over here, we're going to show you how to build your loom first of all, how to build up this weaving, and then to add anything extra in here that you may want to add. So let's start by introducing some materials that you may need to start this project with.
Okay, so the first thing you'll need, of course, is yarn. Choose your favorite colors, whatever colors you want to use for this particular project. You'll find some in your bag that's been provided for you. So use the yarn that's in your bag. You'll also need some scissors. Make sure you're practicing safety with scissors. Have an adult maybe help you cut. If you're younger, older kids, you may be able to do it yourself. You'll also need some cardboard or steady backing. Some type of cardboard or steady backing that you can use to put your yarn on your loom. And you'll also need some type of beading. There are some that have been provided for you in your bag. These are some more. Just some type of bead, something fun, exciting, and any other found objects. I found some raffia, which is dried grass that you can incorporate into your final piece.
Alright, and then for this project, there are 3 really important vocabulary words that we need to know. You may have already heard 1 or 2 of them. The first one that we need to talk about is your loom. So your loom is what your sturdy piece of cardboard or cardstock paper, maybe even just like some really thick poster board, anything like that will work for your loom. Your loom is going to be the frame for your weaving, your base. So this is your loom. Next, we're going to talk about the warp. Your warp is like your framework. It's the vertical threads that run up and down in your loom, and that's what we're going to weave in and out of. And the last one that we need to talk about is your weft. So a weft are these horizontal threads that are actually going in and out that make that basket weaving pattern. So we've got loom, your base, warp, your threads, and your weft, the actual weaving itself. All right, and starting off, Miss Sherry is going to show you how to make that loom using your sturdy backing or cardboard.
Okay, so the first thing you need to do is take your steady back. If you have a ruler or a straight edge, you can use your notebook, whatever you have that will provide a straight edge for you, a book, a tablet, whatever. And you're going to have to draw some straight lines. I put some on here for you. And once you draw those straight lines, they're about 1 inch apart, so you can measure your lines across your board. Just line them up and put about 1 inch into the paper on each end and move over. The width of your ruler is perfect. Okay, so you're going to do that. Now, once you've created that, you're going to take it and take your scissors and just cut in no more than 1 inch, because you've already marked off the area. And they'll match on both ends. It's very important that you try to keep the same amount of cut on each end. That way they'll match up your lines. So vertical lines, as you know, go north and south, straight up and down, as opposed to the horizontal lines that, like the horizon, they go across. So vertical and horizontal lines you'll be working with in this project. Okay, so the next step after you've done that is you're going to take your yarn, whatever color you want to choose for your base. And I'm going to use this because you can see it really well. So you're going to take it, put it at the top, and on the back, very important step, get a piece of tape, and you're going to tape it off across the back. If you do not tape your yarn on the back of your loom, your yarn will wobble all over the page and your final piece will look very funny. And it may not stay together very long. So you're going to go around the back, around the front, and you're making it tight. And once you have the whole piece completed, you'll whip one like this. Okay? And when you get to the other end of this particular piece, you're going to go back and tape it off as well. So when you get all the way across, you take both ends. Okay.
Alright, so that was our warp. Next I'm going to show you guys how to make this weft. So to start, choose whatever color string you want to start with, string or yarn, and cut off a good amount of it. Very carefully, once again, always cutting away from you, never towards you, right? You're gonna grab one end of that, and we're gonna tie it carefully to our first string here. And you wanna try your best to get it near the bottom. So tie it off nice and sturdy. You can tuck this little extra inwards, or you can cut it off at the end, or you can even just leave it if you really, really like it. And after you have it tied off nice and sturdy, we're gonna start going under and over for each string in your warp, which remember are these base strings that we made just a second ago. So we're gonna start with under. Take the other end of your string, go under, pull it through, watching out for stray objects. So pull it through. All right, so that's under. And then for this next one, we're gonna go over and lift up your next string and go back under and pull it all the way through. Ignore this one because we're gonna go over it. Pull up your next one. Go under. If you really, really want to, you could use a needle to tie into your string and thread it through. That might be a little bit easier, but of course you don't have to. All right, once you get to the end, we're gonna loop it back around, and I'm gonna go under. And on that next row, it's really important to note that you're going to be going the opposite way that you went in the first row. So if on this one, the string below it is going under, this next one needs to be going over. So we're going to go over, and then here we're going to go under, because this one is over. So under. Under. Notice how the ones that are over, I'm basically just kind of leaving there. Make sure also that you're not pulling them too tight so that they're bending in like this. If that happens, you can just kind of push it back out. You don't want it to be too tight or else it's just gonna all stretch together and pull really crazy. So make sure you're not pulling anything too tight. Finish that line off. Trying my best not to tangle everything up. And then when you're done with a row or two, with a few rows, make sure you push it all down to the bottom so that you have plenty of room to continue building upwards. Okay, and once you do a few rows of that, if you want to then maybe switch colors, or if you run out of string right there, you can always add to that. So say I ran out of string, or maybe here I want to swap colors. All you got to do is choose your next color. Let's see, I'm gonna go with, how about some bright orange, why not? Get as much of it as you may want. Remember, you can always add to it. Cut it off again, cutting carefully and away from me, as always. And then all you're gonna need to do here is tie these together. Just the best that you can. All right. And then it just continues on, and then you just continue it like you have been going normally, over and under, making sure that it's the opposite than the one that it was before. So if I'm over here, I'm gonna come back under, then over, under, over, under. You always wanna go the opposite, okay? So now Miss Sherry is gonna show us how to add in some found objects.
Okay, one little insert I want to add. If you want to make your background more important, exciting and vibrant, you can come and paint your background, use oil pastels, use some watercolors, use some paints that are in your bag that you got, and color the background so that you can have an exciting background. And that way, if you can see through little areas of your yarn in your weaving, it'll still be a multicolor. Choose a color, and you can do that as well. Now, one of the other tricks that we learned as we were working on this, or we've done, if you take a little yarn and you take a little piece of tape, now on the found objects, I'm gonna put some beads. This is the final piece created here that I worked on. I put some beads in here. I hope that you can see those. And the way I did that was, I took a little piece of yarn, about I'd say 2 inches long. So I just took it and I kind of measured it, and there, I'm gonna put the tape there for now. And yes, we cut away from ourselves because we don't want to have any injury. Okay, and then you take it and tie off the end of your yarn. Tie about, I say 3 knots. If you tie them very close to the end, that'll keep your beads from slipping. So tie your knots close to the end, about 3 of them. It'll help your bead not slip off, like that. And then I took the tape, because I found it easy, and just put a little bitty piece of tape on the end of your yarn. This works kind of like a needle. It kind of helps and is safer. You won't end up sticking yourself or someone. Just put it on the end of that yarn and twist it until it gets like a little point on it. And then you can take your bead or whatever you want, and you can just pierce it right through the opening on your bead. I'm gonna get a large bead so hopefully you can see it. There we go. So you're gonna pull that little bitty piece of tape through there, right there. And you're gonna pick a place on your final piece where you think it will be exciting. You can make it high, low. And so, wherever you want, take your tape off now, lay it aside, choose where you want to put your bead. You're going to put it on a vertical string. The ones that you created, you're going to tie it off like this, make it as short as you want, and then tie this rope, your yarn. Because in this story that we're talking about today, the girl had more yarn than she could ever imagine. She put yarn on everything. So, once you get it tied off, you're going to then go back and snip off the extra yarn. Be careful because you want to make sure you're using the string you just used. And then there you go. Okay? And put away pieces. And that's how you can tie on extra pieces. So, anything you want. And I added this rafe You can put that in your piece. You can use a tree, a piece of stone, a rock, whatever excites you. Because this is your project, let your imagination run wild. Don't limit yourself. Be creative. You can do it. Trust your imagination. We have so many things going on in society right now. Let your imagination have fun. This is art. We made yarn today, used yarn, and made weaving projects. So you have your bags, you have your projects. Let's get at it and let's use art and have fun making a weaving. And thank you so much. Remember we had our loom.
Our loom,
Uh-huh.
our base,
Right.
our warp, which is the vertical threads. I remembered. It's the vertical threads that we use for our base,
Uh-huh.
our warp, and our weft, the actual weaving itself, the in and out.
So, with that being said, we thank you so much for your time. Have fun. Let your imagination go. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.